The first violation notice arrived on a Tuesday, not a Monday, which would have been too predictable, not a Friday, which would have been too cruel. A Tuesday, an ordinary, unremarkable Tuesday in early spring. The dogwood trees were just beginning to bloom. The birds were singing. The world was going about its business, unaware that my life was about to change. I was standing in my kitchen, making coffee, the same coffee I had made every morning for years, the same routine, the same mug, the same spoon, the same quiet before the chaos of the day. My service dog, Max, was lying at my feet, his head resting on my left shoe. He was half asleep, his eyes closed, his breathing slow and steady. He had been with me for 3 years at this point. 3 years of waking me from nightmares. 3 years of alerting me before panic attacks. 3 years of saving my life. Then I heard the mail slot flap. It was a sound I had heard thousands of times before. The metal flap opening, the envelope sliding through, the flap closing with a soft clatter. But this time, something was different. The envelopes landed on the floor with a weight that felt wrong. Too heavy, too thick, too official. Max lifted his head. His ears perked up. He looked at the door, then at me, then back at the door. He knew something was coming. He always knew. I walked over to the door. The morning light was streaming through the window, casting long shadows across the floor. I bent down and picked up the mail. Bills, ads, junk, and one envelope that stood out from the rest. White, heavy, official. The return address said Cedar Creek Estates, HOA. My stomach tightened. I had never received mail from the HOA before, not once in the 3 years we had lived here. I paid my dues on time. I mowed my lawn every Saturday. I kept my fence painted. I followed the rules, or so I thought. I opened the envelope. The paper inside was thick, expensive, the kind of paper that lawyers use to intimidate you before you even read the words. The letterhead had the HOA logo, a stylized creek, some trees, the words Cedar Creek Estates in elegant script. The signature at the bottom belonged to Barbara Whitmore, HOA president. The words $500 fine were stamped in red, not printed, stamped, as if someone had taken a rubber stamp and pressed it onto the paper with force, as if they wanted me to feel the weight of that stamp, as if they wanted me to know that this was not a suggestion, this was not a request, this was a command. I read the letter once, then again, then a third time. The words blurred together. My hands started to shake. Max sat up. He put his paw on my leg. He could feel my heart rate increasing. He could smell the cortisol in my sweat. He knew something was wrong. Dear resident, the letter began. This letter is to inform you that your dog has been reported as a violation of Cedar Creek Estates Community Standards Section 8.4, which prohibits animals that are deemed intimidating or dangerous to other residents. Your dog has been described as too large, aggressive in appearance, and frightening to neighbors. You are hereby required to remove the animal from the premises within 14 days of receipt of this notice. Failure to comply will result in additional fines of $500 per day, a lien on your property, and potential eviction proceedings. Remove him. My service animal, my medical equipment, my lifeline. The words felt like a punch to the gut. I read them again, then again. Max leaned against my leg. He looked up at me with those calm brown eyes. He didn't understand why I was upset. He just knew that I was. He leaned his weight against me, offering comfort. That's what he does. That's what he always does. I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because if I didn't laugh, I would have cried. I laughed at the absurdity of it. A $500 fine for having a service dog. A dog that had saved my life 100 times. A dog that was the reason I could leave my house. A dog that was the reason I could sleep at night. A dog that was the reason I was still alive. I thought about the irony. The HOA was trying to fine me for the very thing that allowed me to live in their community. Without Max, I wouldn't have been able to buy a house. Without Max, I wouldn't have been able to attend the HOA meetings. Without Max, I wouldn't have been able to mow my lawn or walk my neighborhood or do any of the things that made me a good resident. Max saved my life every day, and they wanted to fine me for it. I set the letter down on the kitchen counter. Max watched me. His tail wagged slowly. He didn't understand the letter. He didn't understand the HOA. He didn't understand Barbara Whitmore or Mrs. Patterson or any of the people who were trying to take him away from me. All he understood was that I was upset, and that his job was to make me feel better.
Let me back up. My name is not important. What matters is why I have Max. What matters is the journey that brought me to that kitchen on that Tuesday morning, holding that letter. I served in the military, 2 tours overseas, Afghanistan in 2010, Iraq in 2012. I was a combat medic. My job was to save lives. I was the person who ran toward the explosions when everyone else ran away. I was the person who knelt in the dirt, in the blood, in the chaos, and tried to stop the bleeding. I was the person who held the hands of dying soldiers and told them they were going to be okay, even when I knew they weren't. I saw things I can't unsee. Friends lost, children hurt, bodies broken, darkness that follows me still. I remember the faces. I remember the names. I remember the sounds, the screams, the explosions. the silence that followed. I remember the smell of burning metal, and blood, and fear. I came home different. My wife noticed first. She said I wasn't the same person who left. She was right. I was angry all the time. Not shouting angry, quiet angry. The kind of angry that simmers beneath the surface, that poisons everything it touches. I was distant. I would sit on the couch for hours, staring at nothing, not speaking. I was scared all the time. Not of anything specific, just scared. A low-grade fear that never went away. I would jump at loud noises, a car backfiring, a door slamming, a balloon popping. Each sound sent me back to the war. Each sound made me reach for a weapon that wasn't there. I would avoid crowds. The grocery store was a battlefield. The mall was a nightmare. Restaurants were impossible. Too many people, too much noise, too many threats that weren't threats, but felt like threats. I would sit in the dark for hours, staring at nothing. My wife would find me there, in the living room, the lights off, the curtains drawn, just sitting in the darkness. She would ask me what I was doing. I never had an answer. I didn't know. I just needed the dark. The dark was safe. The dark was quiet. The dark didn't remind me of anything. The man she married was gone. A stranger had taken his place. She tried to reach him. She tried to bring him back. But he was gone. Buried somewhere in the dust of Afghanistan. Lost somewhere in the chaos of Iraq. The night terrors started first. I would wake up screaming, drenched in sweat, convinced I was back there. The dreams were vivid, too vivid. I could smell the dust. I could hear the explosions. I could see the faces of the men I couldn't save. They would look at me with accusing eyes. They would ask me why I didn't do more. They would ask me why they had to die. My wife would hold me until I calmed down. She never complained. She never made me feel like a burden. But I could see the fear in her eyes, the exhaustion, the worry. She was losing me. She was watching the man she loved disappear piece by piece, night by night, nightmare by nightmare.
The doctors called it PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, a clinical term for a very human experience. The mind's way of protecting itself by replaying the trauma over and over, hoping that somehow, this time, the ending will be different. This time I will save them. This time I will be faster. This time I will be better. But the ending never changes. The men stay dead. The children stay hurt. The war stays won or lost or whatever it was. I couldn't change the past. I couldn't save them. I could only live with the memories. The nightmares came every night at first, then every other night, then a few times a week. They never stopped completely. Even now, with Max beside me, they come sometimes, but they are less frequent, less intense, less devastating. Max changed that. Max gave me something to hold on to, something real, something present, something that wasn't the war. The panic attacks came next. My heart would race, my chest would tighten, I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was dying. The first one happened at the grocery store. I was buying milk, just milk, a simple errand, something I had done 100 times before. A man dropped a can behind me. The sound was loud, too loud. It echoed through the store like a gunshot. My body reacted before my mind could catch up. I dropped to my knees. My hands went to my head. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't see. I couldn't think. People stared. No one helped. The man who dropped the can apologized and walked away. He didn't know what he had done. He didn't know that his simple accident had triggered a full-blown panic attack. I stayed on the floor for what felt like hours. It was probably only a few minutes. The store manager came over. He asked if I was okay. I couldn't answer. My wife found me. She had been in the next aisle. She heard the commotion. She knelt beside me. She held my hand. She talked to me in a low, calm voice until my breathing slowed. The panic attacks became more frequent after that. Every loud noise triggered one. Every crowd triggered one. Every unexpected touch. Every sudden movement. Every reminder that the world was unpredictable and dangerous. I stopped going to the grocery store. I stopped going anywhere. I became a prisoner in my own home. Max changed that too. He learned to alert me before the panic attacks. He would nudge my hand. He would lean against my leg. He would look at me with those calm brown eyes. Sit down, he was telling me. Breathe. I'm here. You're safe. I learned learned to trust him. I learned to listen to his alerts. The panic attacks became shorter, less intense, manageable. But the damage was done. The fear had taken root, and the HOA was about to make it worse. The agoraphobia followed. I couldn't go to the grocery store. I couldn't go to restaurants. I couldn't go to the movies. I couldn't go to the park. I couldn't go anywhere. The outside world felt dangerous. Every sound was a threat. Every stranger was an enemy. Every open space felt like a trap. I stopped leaving my house. I stopped living. The walls became my world. The couch became my bed. The television became my companion. I would sit for hours, watching the same shows, the same movies, the same news cycles, trying to distract myself from the fear that lived inside my chest.
My wife would try to get me to go outside. Just for a walk, she would say. Just around the block. Just to the mailbox. I couldn't do it. The thought of stepping outside made my heart race. My palms would sweat. My breath would catch. The fear was overwhelming, irrational, all-consuming. I knew it was irrational. I knew that the world outside was not the battlefield. I knew that the neighbors were not enemy soldiers. I knew that the sounds of cars and children and lawnmowers were not gunfire and explosions. But knowing didn't help. The fear didn't listen to reason. The fear didn't care about logic. The fear was a living thing, a parasite that had taken up residence in my brain. I was trapped in my own mind. My own home felt like a prison. The walls were closing in. The days blurred together. I would wake up, move to the couch, watch TV, move back to bed, sleep, repeat. There was no difference between Monday and Friday. There was no difference between morning and night. There was only the fear and the darkness and the endless waiting for something to change. Max wasn't there yet. I was alone, utterly, completely alone. My wife tried to help. She tried everything, but she couldn't understand what I was feeling. She couldn't see what I was seeing. She couldn't feel what I was feeling. She was patient, she was loving, but she was exhausted. Our marriage was falling apart. I was falling apart. I had given up hope. The VA recommended a service dog. I was skeptical. A dog? A dog was going to fix years of trauma? A dog was going to undo what war had done to me? A dog was going to silence the nightmares and stop the panic attacks and bring me back to life? I didn't believe it, but I was desperate. My wife would try to get me to go outside, just for a walk, she would say, just around the block, just to the mailbox. I couldn't do it. The thought of stepping outside made my heart race. My palms would sweat. My breath would catch. The fear was overwhelming, irrational, all-consuming. I knew it was irrational. I knew that the world outside was not the battlefield. I knew that the neighbors were not enemy soldiers. I knew that the sounds of cars and children and lawnmowers were not gunfire and explosions. But knowing didn't help. The fear didn't listen to reason. The fear didn't care about logic. The fear was a living thing, a parasite that had taken up residence in my brain. I was trapped in my own mind. My own home felt like a prison. The walls were closing in. The days blurred together. I would wake up, move to the couch, watch TV, move back to bed, sleep, repeat. There was no difference between Monday and Friday. There was no difference between morning and night. There was only the fear and the darkness and the endless waiting for something to change. Max wasn't there yet. I was alone, utterly, completely alone. My wife tried to help. She tried everything, but she couldn't understand what I was feeling. She couldn't see what I was seeing. She couldn't feel what I was feeling. She was patient, she was loving, but she was exhausted. Our marriage was falling apart. I was falling apart. I had given up hope. The VA recommended a service dog. I was skeptical. A dog? A dog was going to fix years of trauma? A dog was going to undo what war had done to me? A dog was going to silence the nightmares and stop the panic attacks and bring me back to life? I didn't believe it. But I was desperate. My wife would try to get me to go outside, just for a walk, she would say, just around the block, just to the mailbox. I couldn't do it. The thought of stepping outside made my heart race. My palms would sweat. My breath would catch. The fear was overwhelming, irrational, all-consuming. I knew it was irrational. I knew that the world outside was not the battlefield.
I knew that the neighbors were not enemy soldiers. I knew that the sounds of cars and children and lawnmowers were not gunfire and explosions. But knowing didn't help. The fear didn't listen to reason. The fear didn't care about logic. The fear was a living thing, a parasite that had taken up residence in my brain. I was trapped in my own mind. My own home felt like a prison. The walls were closing in. The days blurred together. I would wake up, move to the couch, watch TV, move back to bed, sleep, repeat. There was no difference between Monday and Friday. There was no difference between morning and night. There was only the fear and the darkness and the endless waiting for something to change. Max wasn't there yet. I was alone, utterly, completely alone. My wife tried to help. She tried everything, but she couldn't understand what I was feeling. She couldn't see what I was seeing. She couldn't feel what I was feeling. She was patient, she was loving, but she was exhausted. Our marriage was falling apart. I was falling apart. I had given up hope. The VA recommended a service dog. I was skeptical. A dog? A dog was going to fix years of trauma? A dog was going to undo what war had done to me? A dog was going to undo what war had done to me? A dog was going to silence the nightmares and stop the panic attacks and bring me back to life? I didn't believe it, but I was desperate. My wife would try to get me to go outside, just for a walk, she would say, just around the block, just to the mailbox. I couldn't do it. The thought of stepping outside made my heart race. My palms would sweat. My breath would catch. The fear was overwhelming, irrational, all-consuming. I knew it was irrational. I knew that the world outside was not the battlefield. I knew that the neighbors were not enemy soldiers. I knew that the sounds of cars and children and lawnmowers were not gunfire and explosions. But knowing didn't help. The fear didn't listen to reason. The fear didn't care about logic. The fear was a living thing, a parasite that had taken up residence in my brain. I was trapped in my own mind. My own home felt like a prison. The walls were closing in. The days blurred together. I would wake up, move to the couch, watch TV, move back to bed, sleep, repeat. There was no difference between Monday and Friday. There was no difference between morning and night. There was only the fear and the darkness and the endless waiting for something to change. I had tried medication. The pills made me numb. I couldn't feel anything. Not the fear, but not the joy either. Not the sadness, but not the love. I was a zombie, going through the motions, existing but not living. I had tried therapy. I sat in a room with a stranger and told them my darkest secrets. I cried, I screamed, I confessed. And then I went home and nothing had changed. The nightmares still came. The panic attacks still hit. The fear still ruled my life. I had tried group sessions, sitting in a circle with other broken veterans, sharing our pain, comparing our scars. It helped to know I wasn't alone, but it didn't help me leave the house. It didn't help me sleep through the night. It didn't help me live. Nothing worked. I was running out of options. I was running out of hope. I was running out of time. So I applied for a service dog. The application was long. Medical records, psychiatric evaluations, letters from my doctor, letters from my wife. I had to prove that I was disabled. I had to prove that a service dog would help. I had to prove that I could care for a dog. I had to prove that I was worthy. It took months. I waited. I hoped. I prayed. Every day I checked the mail. Every day. Nothing. I called the organization. They said they were processing applications. They said it would take time. They said to be patient. I was not patient. I was desperate. The waiting was the hardest part. Every morning I would wake up and hope that today would be the day. Every evening I would go to bed disappointed. The days turned into weeks. The weeks turned into months. The months felt like years. I would imagine what the dog would look like. What color? What breed? What name? I imagined walking through the neighborhood with a dog by my side. I imagined feeling safe. I imagined feeling free. I imagined feeling like myself again. But the imagination was not reality. Reality was the empty mailbox. Reality was the silent phone. Reality was the fear that would not leave. Reality was the darkness that would not lift. My wife tried to keep my spirits up. It will happen, she would say. They said it would take time. Just be patient. But patience was a luxury I could not afford. Every day that passed without help was another day lost to the fear. Another day of hiding in the house. Another day of watching the world from behind the curtains. I started to lose hope. Maybe the dog wouldn't help. Maybe nothing would help. Maybe I was broken beyond repair.
Maybe this was just my life now. A life of fear. A life of darkness. A life of loneliness. Then the call came. The call came on a Wednesday afternoon. I was sitting on the couch, watching the same movie I had watched 100 times before. The phone rang. I almost didn't answer it. I let it ring 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Finally, I picked it up. Hello? My voice was hoarse. I hadn't spoken to anyone in days. Mr. Aldridge? The voice on the other end was cheerful, professional, warm. This is Susan from Pause for Veterans. I have some good news. My heart stopped. My hand tightened on the phone. Yes? We have a dog for you. His name is Max. He's a German Shepherd. 2 years old, fully trained. He's calm, intelligent, and very intuitive. We think he would be a perfect match for you.
I couldn't speak. Tears filled my eyes. My throat tightened. Mr. Aldrich, are you still there? Yes, I managed to whisper. Yes, I'm here. Would you like to come meet him? Yes. When? How about Friday? We're at the training facility outside Denver. I can email you the address. I'll be there. I hung up the phone. I sat in silence for a moment. Then I started to cry. Not the tears of sadness that had become so familiar. Tears of hope. Tears of relief. Tears of something I hadn't felt in years. Joy. I met Max at the training facility outside Denver on a Friday morning. The facility was a large building set on acres of open land. There were fields for training. There were kennels for the dogs. There were offices for the staff. The air smelled like grass and sunshine and possibility. I walked inside. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. I was nervous. What if he didn't like me? What if I wasn't the right person for him? What if I failed at this too? Susan met me at the front desk. She was a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Mr. Aldridge, she said, it's so good to meet you. Max is waiting. Follow me. She led me down a hallway to a training room. The room was large and open, with rubber flooring and toys scattered around. Susan told me to wait. She disappeared through a door at the back of the room. A moment later, she returned with Max. He was beautiful, black and tan fur, brown eyes that were calm and intelligent. He walked beside Susan without pulling on the leash, without barking, without any of the chaos I expected from a young dog. He sat when Susan stopped. He looked at me. Max, Susan said, meet your new friend. Max looked at me. I looked at Max. Neither of us moved. Then Max stood up. He walked toward me, slowly, deliberately. He stopped in front of me. He sat down. He looked up at me with those calm brown eyes. I knelt down. He put his paw on my knee. I cried. I had not cried like that in years. Not since the war. Not since I came home. The tears came like a flood. Years of pain and fear and loneliness pouring out of me. Max licked my face. He didn't pull away. He didn't get scared. He just stayed. Susan smiled. He's chosen you, she said. I took Max home that day. He sat in the passenger seat of my truck. His head was out the window. His ears were flapping in the wind. He looked happy. I hadn't felt happy in years, but watching him, I felt something. Hope. The drive home was 2 hours. Max slept for most of it. His head rested on the center console. His breathing was slow and steady. I would glance over at him every few minutes, afraid that he might disappear, afraid that this was all a dream. When we got home, my wife was waiting at the door. She had been skeptical about the service dog. She didn't think it would help. She had seen me try so many things. She had watched them all fail. She didn't want to get her hopes up. But when she saw Max, her face changed. She knelt down. Max walked over to her. He sniffed her hand. He wagged his tail. He put his paw on her knee. My wife cried too. We all cried. Max stood in the middle of the living room, looking at us, probably wondering why these strange humans were so emotional. He didn't understand. He was just being himself. That night, we ordered pizza. We sat on the floor with Max. We ate, we talked, we laughed. It was the first time in years that our house had felt like a home. The first night Max came home, I slept through the night. No nightmares, no screaming, no sweat. He lay beside me on the bed, his body warm against mine, his breathing slow and steady. My wife said it was the first peaceful night she had seen me have in years. I woke up the next morning feeling rested, truly rested. Not the exhausted, hollow feeling that had become my normal. Not the dread of facing another day. Just rested, peaceful, calm. Max was still beside me. His head was on my chest. His eyes were closed. He was still sleeping. I didn't move. I didn't want to wake him. I laid there, staring at the ceiling, listening to him breathe. My wife woke up a few minutes later. She looked at me. She looked at Max. She smiled. "Good morning," she said. "Good morning," I said. It was the first time in years that I had said those words without forcing them, without pretending, without hiding the fear behind a mask of normalcy. I meant them. It was a good morning, the best morning I had had in a long time. Max woke up. He stretched. He yawned. He looked at me with those calm brown eyes. He wagged his tail. He was happy. I was happy. We were happy. The healing had begun. Over the next few weeks, I learned Max's signals. He was subtle. He didn't bark or whine or paw at me aggressively. He was gentle. He was patient. He was precise. When he nudged my hand, a panic attack was coming. He would do it softly at first, a gentle nudge with his nose. If I didn't respond, he would nudge harder. He would keep nudging until I looked at him, until I acknowledged his alert, until I sat down and started to breathe. When he put his paw on my leg, I needed to sit down. He would do it during the early stages of a panic attack, before the full force of it hit. He would put his paw on my leg and lean his weight against me. It was his way of saying, "I'm here. You're not alone. You're safe." When he leaned against me, I needed to breathe. He would press his body against my leg, my chest, my back. He would create pressure. He would ground me. He would remind me that I was in the present, not the past, that I was home, not the battlefield. He was always right. He never missed an alert, never once. The first time he alerted me, I was at home. I was reading a book. He nudged my hand. I ignored him. He nudged harder. I still ignored him. He put his paw on my leg. I looked down. He was staring at me. A minute later, the panic attack hit. I should have listened. After that, I trusted him. When he alerted, I listened. I would sit down. I would breathe. I would focus on him. The panic attacks became shorter, less intense, manageable. He was saving my life, one alert at a time. Trusting Max was not easy. I had spent years trusting no one, trusting nothing. The ward had taught me that trust was dangerous, that trust could get you killed, that the only person you could rely on was yourself. But Max was different. Max was not a person. He was not capable of betrayal. He was not capable of lies. He was not capable of the complex deceptions that humans use to hurt each other. He was just a dog, a loyal, loving, honest dog. He did not judge me. He did not pity me. He did not look at me with fear or disgust or confusion. He just looked at me, calm, steady, present. I learned to trust his alerts. I learned to trust his presence. I learned to trust that he would be there when I needed him, that he would not leave, that he would not give up on me. The trust extended beyond his alerts. I trusted him to walk beside me in public. I trusted him to create space in crowds. I trusted him to wake me from nightmares. I trusted him with my life, and he never let me down. The nightmares didn't stop completely, but Max learned to wake me from them. He would put his cold nose on my face. He would nudge me until I opened my eyes. Then he would sit there, waiting, until my breathing slowed. He never left. He never gave up. The first time he woke me from a nightmare, I was confused. I was disoriented. I didn't know where I was. I was back in Afghanistan. The dust was in my throat. The explosions were in my ears. The fear was in my chest. Then I felt Max's nose on my cheek. Cold, wet, real. I opened my eyes. I was in my bedroom. My wife was asleep beside me. Max was standing over me, his brown eyes looking into mine. "Good boy," I whispered. He wagged his tail. The nightmares became less frequent, less intense. They still came. They still hurt. But they no longer controlled me. Max controlled them. Max chased them away. Max kept me safe.
Some nights I would wake up before Max could wake me. I would be gasping, sweating, shaking. Max would already be there, his head on my chest, his weight pressing down. He would wait until my breathing slowed. He would wait until my heart stopped racing. He would wait until I fell back asleep. He never complained. He never got impatient. He never left. He just stayed. Going out in public was still hard, but Max made it possible. He would walk beside me, his body between me and strangers. He would create space. He would block people from getting too close. He gave me room to breathe. He gave me room to live. The first time I went to the grocery store with Max, I was terrified. The parking lot was crowded. The store was busy. The noise was overwhelming. Carts clattering. Children crying. Announcements over the loudspeaker. My heart started racing. My palms started sweating. I could feel the panic building. Then Max snatched my hand. I looked down. He was looking at me. "Sit down," his eyes said. "Breathe. I'm here. You're safe." I found a bench near the entrance. I sat down. Max lay at my feet. He rested his head on my shoe. I focused on his breathing. In, out, in, out. The panic receded. The fear faded. I was okay. We went inside the store. Max walked beside me. People stared. Some smiled. Some frowned. Some crossed to the other aisle. I didn't care. Max was with me. I was safe. We bought milk. Just milk. That was enough. Over time, we went to more places. The hardware store. The pharmacy. The coffee shop. Each trip was a victory. Each trip was a step toward healing. On bad days, when I couldn't get out of bed, Max would lie across my lap. His weight was heavy. 75 pounds of warm fur and steady breathing. It grounded me. It reminded me that I was alive. It reminded me that I was not alone. The depression was heavy. The world was too hard. The darkness was too deep. I would lie there, staring at the ceiling, unable to move. The hours would pass. The light would fade. The night would come. Max would climb onto the bed. He would lie across my lap. He would rest his head on my chest. He would stay there, patient and steady, until I was ready to get up. Sometimes that took an hour. Sometimes it took 3. Sometimes it took all day. Max didn't mind. He was patient. He was loyal. He was there. The deep pressure therapy helped. The weight of his body pressed against mine. The rhythm of his breathing slowed mine. The warmth of his fur chased away the cold. He saved me on those days. He saved me from the darkness. He saved me from myself. Over time, I started to heal. Not completely. Not perfectly. But enough. Enough to leave the house. Enough to see friends. Enough to hug my wife without flinching. Enough to live. Max was the reason. Max was the cure. I started sleeping through the night. Not every night, but most nights. The nightmares still came, but they were less frequent, less intense. I would wake up gasping, but Max would be there. He would calm me down. He would help me fall back asleep. I started going out in public. The grocery store, the hardware store, the coffee shop, the park. Each trip was a victory. Each trip was a step toward normalcy. Max was beside me for all of it. He never left. He never failed. I started to feel like myself again. Not the person I was before the war. That person was gone. He was not coming back. But a new person. A different person. A person who had been through hell and survived. A person who had a service dog by his side. My wife noticed the change. She said I was smiling more, laughing more, living more. She said she was proud of me. She said she loved me. She said she was glad I didn't give up. I was glad too. We moved to Cedar Creek Estates 3 years after I got Max. The neighborhood was nice, quiet, tree-lined streets, a community pool, a clubhouse, the kind of place where people waved at each other, and children played in the yards, and everyone seemed to know everyone else's name.